Hey y'all, welcome to Most of It, where I talk about most things that I find interesting. Today, we'll be going over Konrad Curze, Primarch of the Night Lord's Legion. So without further ado, let's get into this. The young Primarch began his life by crashing into the surface of the planet Nostromo. Yes, I said into, not onto. Nostromo was a mining world shrouded in eternal night, and the crust of it was so thin that the Primarch's pod broke through it and barreled underground. Curze's first moments were spent climbing his way out of a burning pit, and it didn't get much better from there. Unlike most of the other Primarchs, Konrad was never taken in by a family. Instead, he grew up utterly alone, surviving off his own wits, feeding himself off of rats and dogs, and occasionally the odd human. And to add more suck onto this guy, he was constantly plagued by visions of the darkest possible futures, often preventing him from sleeping. Now, Nostromo was an awful place, plagued by crime and corruption, with the only thing keeping the population in check being the suicide rates. Konrad soon became something of a vigilante, starting by intervening in crimes he witnessed firsthand, and soon evolving into taking out whole criminal operations. Soon, this all led to the corrupt elites of the planet, with some disappearing and then reappearing gutted like a fish. Within a year of Curze's work, the crime in his city was nearly zero, with criminals too scared to do anything and mothers warning their children to behave or else the Night Haunter would come for them. This name, the Night Haunter, became very common, with even Curze, who had no name at this point, taking it as his own title. Now, something to understand about the Night Haunter is that without laws on the planet, his only scale of justice was his own conscience. Thus, he became the only form of justice, or often terror, the city knew. Soon he appeared before the city's nobilities, who had survived his purge, and declared himself the first monarch of Nostromo. He came to be considered a fair ruler, who, when injustice reached his ears, set out and stalked the wrongdoers before mutilating them. Soon word of the Night Haunter spread to the surrounding cities, who all fell into line, fearing him ever coming to their doors. Eventually, the Emperor arrived upon Nostromo, with his sons Fulgrim, Ferrus Manus, Rogaldorn, and Lorgar. The citizens of the planet, who were accustomed to the eternal darkness, could not stand to look upon the Emperor's radiance, and hid themselves from him. The Night Haunter met the group, and upon seeing them, was struck with a vision so painful and horrifying, he tried to claw his own eyes out, but was stopped by the Emperor. It is said that the Night Haunter saw all their fates, including his own death. He then looked at his father, who said, "Konrad Curze, be at peace, for I have arrived and intend to take you home." Curze responded, "That is not my name, father. I am the Night Haunter, and I know full well what you intend for me." Curze soon took control of his legion, establishing himself as a vicious and horrifying, yet somehow noble leader with a strong sense of justice. Konrad quickly adapted, with him learning under the tutelage of his brother Fulgrim. During this time, Curze would have visions of the Horus Heresy and of Fulgrim's fall to chaos, which he would tell his brother of. When the Night Lord's Legion joined the Great Crusade, a trend soon emerged, with them never thinking to use anything other than total decisive action to achieve their goals. Curze encouraged his sons to adorn their armor and symbols of terror to strike fears in the hearts of their victims. Soon, as with the cities on Nostromo, systems would fall into line, simply from the fear the Night Lord struck into them. Replacements for fallen Marines would be taken from Nostromo, which in the absence of the Night Haunter had fallen back into crime and corruption. Originally, Curze had intended for the best and brightest of the planet's citizens to be offered to his legion, but the planet's nobility instead emptied their prisons by sending them off to join the Night Lord's Legion. By the time Konrad realized what had happened to his legion, he already viewed them as fallen and corrupt, with him losing control over his sons and his visions becoming more frequent and vivid. Curze was one of the few Primarchs to hate his own legion, with him seeing them as what they were, a clan of superhuman thieves, murderers, and rapists. Konrad was also one of the most disliked Primarchs among his own brothers, with his brutal methods being looked down upon, especially by Rogaldorn and Vulcan. Curze himself stated that he didn't hate any of his brothers, save Corvus Corax, the two being very similar, save the fact that Corax manages to hold onto his humanity and dignity despite his upbringing. On one occasion, during a vision, Curze would see the monster of a man he would become, which horrified him. Upon awaking from the vision, he would realize he had murdered one of his servants, with this being the first person he ever killed that he considered innocent, and he realized he now deserved punishment. Soon, in a joint campaign with the Imperial Fists and the Emperor's Children legions, Konrad would learn of the corruption of his homeworld, and tried to confide in his brothers, whose reactions were less than favorable, with Fulgrim revealing to Dorn Curze's past visions of the future heresy. Dorn would confront Konrad on this, with him flying into a rage at Fulgrim's betrayal of confidence, and attacking and wounding Dorn, and killing many of his sons. Curze fled the planet with his sons and returned to Nostromo, with the Imperial ship following behind him. The ship arrived just in time to see Konrad fire lasers into the hole he had arrived in, overheating the planet's core and exploding his homeworld. Konrad's horrific actions soon made him susceptible to chaos, with his campaigns becoming more atrocious and less justifiable, with him no longer crusading in the Emperor's name, instead in the name of death and terror. The Emperor eventually ordered Curze back to Terra to answer for his crimes, but then a little thing called the Horus Heresy began. Konrad was quick to swear his loyalty to the War Master, revealing his treachery at the Isfahan drop site massacre, deploying his legion against the Salamanders, Raven Guard, and Iron Hands legions, with Curze himself saving the life of Lorgar from Corvus Corax. After the battle, Konrad captured Vulcan and attempted to kill him, but discovered that his brother was a perpetual and could not be killed, instead deciding to torture the Primarch in an attempt to break his mind. After a long time, Vulcan was able to escape Konrad, who had been partially successful in his efforts. Soon, Curze would move on, engaging the Dark Angels Legion in hit-and-run attacks, with him eventually challenging the Lion directly, telling him to meet on the planet Segualsa. Here, a fight would break out between the two legions, ending with the Lion's throat being slashed and Curze being stabbed in the back, and both legions retreating. The Night Lords would soon be ambushed by the Dark Angels, ending with the Lion dealing 11 wounds that would kill a Space Marine on Curze, who soon fell into a comatose state, and was retrieved by his sons who fled. Soon, Curze awoke during another Dark Angels ambush and managed to sneak aboard the Lion's ship, the Invincible Reason, hiding aboard it for 4 months, massacring any team that was sent to find him, even evading capture by the Lion himself. Soon, the Lion ship arrived over the planet Macragge, with Curze initiating a mass drop pod landing and escaping the ship, landing on Macragge's surface. He began to wreak havoc in the cities, massacring any who crossed his path. Soon, he was confronted by Rubuta Gilman and the Lion in a chapel which he had rigged with explosions. He managed to escape the blast, with him believing he had killed his 2 brothers, and continued his spree, sweeping a pack of space wolves and almost killing Gilman's mother, when he was attacked by a thoroughly insane Vulcan, who had also crash-landed onto Macragge. Curze, having had no visions of Vulcan, was in shock as the two battled across the city, ending with Vulcan being stabbed by a Cabal spy with a Chaos Blade, seemingly killing the Primarch. The spy also teleported Curze into the warp, trapping him for weeks, eventually re-emerging in Macragge's capital. Now, being haunted by visions of his brother Sanguinius' death aboard Horus's warship, he sought out the Red Angel in his throne room and revealed to him that he had also seen his own death at the hand of an Imperial assassin sent by the Emperor. Sanguinius, possessing many of the same visions, attempted to make his brother see the light and return to the Loyalist side, ending with Konrad setting off explosives again and escaping again. Curze continued his campaign of terror, eventually being confronted by the Lion, ending with the Lion breaking Curze's back over his knee and ripping the power unit out of his armor, effectively imprisoning him in it. Konrad was hauled before Sanguinius to answer for his crimes, where he stated that they could not kill him, for he knew he would die at the hands of an assassin sent by the Emperor. The other Primarchs realized that a dead Emperor could not send anybody to kill Curze, and took this to mean that the Emperor and Terra still stood. It was decided that Konrad would be kept prisoner, acting effectively as a crystal ball as the Primarchs attempted to return to Terra. Curze, now imprisoned aboard the Invincible Reason and having recovered from his spinal injury, was occasionally questioned by the Lion, proving to be uncooperative. Sanguinius, having a vision that his destiny lay at the planet Davin, would sneak aboard the Invincible Reason and break Curze out, bringing him with him for both the sake of prophesying and to prove to his brother that fate could in fact be changed. When they arrived upon Davin, they found the temple where Horus had fallen, with Konrad becoming frustrated that he had foreseen none of this. Soon, Sanguinius fell into a warp portal and Curze was drugged back into the Invincible Reason. After the battle, it was agreed that Sanguinius and his legion would make their way to Terra, while the Lion and Gilliman distracted the traitor blockades in their way. Curze was taken aboard the Blood Angel ship so he could face the Emperor's judgment, but Sanguinius stated that just as he was about to meet his fate on Terra, so too must the Night Haunter meet his, with him placing his brother in a stasis coffin and jettisoning him into space to one day meet his destiny. Curze floated aimlessly in space for the rest of the heresy, eventually being discovered by a human salvage ship. Curze awoke and massacred all on board, save 2, a man named Elver and an Imperial assassin who was able to get a signal back to his commanders before meeting his end. Curze set out to the planet Segualsa, which would be a 4-year journey. In the meantime, he entertained himself with his new toy, Elver, torturing the man and even saving his life a few times, refusing to allow him the sweet release of death. Upon arriving on Segualsa and rendezvousing with the Night Lord's forces, he had his son dispose of Elver. After the Siege of Terra, unlike the other traitor legions, the Night Lords had not splintered, but had kept attacking the Imperium, with their tactics becoming more and more self-destructive as time passed. Konrad, by this point, had lost much of his sanity and sense of purpose that his sons respected him for. His sons began to disregard their father, seeing that he was no longer the man he used to be. The Emperor himself, wanting to disband the Night Lord's Legion, sent many assassins to deal with their Primarch. Konrad was eventually killed, with him spending his final hours conversing with a corpse statue that he addressed as the Emperor. And funny enough, the statue talked back, ensuring Curze that his insanity was not his fault and that he had behaved as intended until chaos had intervened. He also stated that fate was not set in stone, and in fact Konrad had chosen this path for himself. This caused the Night Haunter to erupt, tearing the puppet to pieces, with it being unclear if it actually was the Emperor or a hallucination of Curze's shattered mind. After completing his memoirs and hiding the book within his fortress, Konrad waited for the assassin, with her arriving later that night and being allowed to infiltrate his fortress, as she encountered no guards or security of any kind. When she found the Primarch, he simply stated, "Death is nothing when compared to vindication." It was at this time Konrad allowed himself to be killed, as he now saw himself as the very thing he had once sought to destroy. Well, that's where the story stands, and I doubt it will progress any more from there. Konrad Curze's story is above all a tragedy. His childhood was one of the hardest of all the Primarchs, with him never knowing love, let alone fellowship or friendship. He effectively acted as a dark mirror for his brother Sanguinius, with both suffering visions of the future, but taking two very different approaches to it. He was obviously a deplorable, wretched person, but it is sad to see that, especially in the beginning, he was actually a rather noble soul. It's interesting to see what he could have been like had he landed on a different planet and had a raising closer to Gilliman or Jagatai's. If you want to know more about the Night Haunter and his Legion, I'd recommend reading the books The Unremembered Empire, Prince of Crows, and Savage Weapons. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and comment down below what topics or characters you'd like to see me cover next, whether Warhammer related or not. And with all that said, I'll see y'all later.